Hello and welcome back to another episode of the Leadership Breakdown Podcast. I'm your host, Kaliota, and today we're talking about something that is very near and dear to a lot of my clients' hearts, and it's chaos management versus being in a powerful leadership position. And what this looks like is a lot of times leaders find themselves putting out fires, and when it comes down to it, a lot of this chaos management is because, especially if you're managing a team, even if you're managing a smaller team of 3 to 5 people, there is a lot of miscommunication that happens. So, if you're looking at chaos management in a nutshell, how I define that is like, are you constantly putting out fires? Are you always checking on, like, hey, is this done? Where are we with this? Like, are you a task manager, right? If you're managing tasks, how are you being an innovative leader? And that is the key to a powerful leadership position versus chaos management, right? Even think of those two terms, powerful leader. When you think of a powerful leader, how would you think of that person? Would you think of that person like scrambling around, like micromanaging, or would you envision that person, sitting calmly and follow, like expecting the people that you hire to do what they said they were going to do, right? And so that's one of the biggest differences that I see once people begin to step into a powerful leadership position, they stop micromanaging, they stop worrying about all the little things because they have empowered their people to do the things that they said they were going to do. The number one issue that I find in this regard actually is when you're hiring someone, right? It starts from the hiring phase. And a lot of times when leaders are strapped and they're feeling burnt out, they're feeling pressured, what do? They're like, oh, I need a hire. And they hire someone and they're looking for someone. But honestly, like the fire is already ensuing. And it's like, ugh, I'm going to get a garden hose and try to put out this forest fire. It's not going to help. Right. And I live in the LA area. We had the horrific fires that happened here recently. And I'm from Hawaii. So the Lahaina fires were near and dear to my heart. And so, right, can you imagine? And especially here in LA, we ran out of water. Think about that when you're like, oh, putting out fires. We're not just putting out a kitchen fire here sometimes. Sometimes like your business is literally on fire and it's like a wildfire and you ran out of water and you really are at zero capacity to manage this burning inferno that's happening. And you're like, oh, like you're so desperate for water or a way to put out this fire that you're hiring the wrong people. That's one of the first things that I see is people hiring the wrong people to put out the fire. It's like, bringing, a different type of first responder that's not a firefighter, like say even a police or an EMT to the scene. Like, yes, they are first responders, but they are not equipped to handle putting out fires. Their first response is to something else. So when you're looking to hire someone, I always tell people you need to hire before you're ready. And sometimes it's like, well, I'm going to be spending extra money because I really don't need a person yet. I'm kind of feeling it, but I don't think I'm there yet. And then they're like, by the time they do need the person, because you're not taking into account the training and development of this person, indoctrinating them to your team, to your SOPs, to your business, your products, and like getting them really ingrained in your business so that they understand what this business is all about, what it means to you, what's valuable, what's not. And so a lot of times it's people hire the wrong people and not understanding roles and responsibilities, and it's both ways, right? Especially when your house is literally on fire. Like, I don't know, just put out the fire. Just put it out. I don't care how you put it out, just put it out. And when the team member that you're hiring hears that message, there's a couple of dynamics that tend to happen. One is like the shift of power happens and the person you hired becomes essentially more powerful. And a lot of times when you're hiring out, it's something that maybe you can't do yourself because that's the first thing that people try to hire out is something that they can't actually do themselves. Or like, I don't know how to run Facebook ads, so let me hire an ads manager. And then that shift of power occurs and you're like, you can't even cross check what that person is doing because you don't even understand it. And I'm not saying that you shouldn't outsource the things that you're not good at because of course you should, but I'm just saying like don't put all of the eggs in their basket because that shift of power happens and then you start bleeding costs everywhere because you can't cross check their work. You don't know how much time they're actually supposed to be spending on this one thing. So that's where there's all this cost overrun that's happening in your business is because you cannot quantify what they're doing. You can't quantify their costs. And so that's one thing that always happens. And then even if it is something that you know how to do and you're like, okay, this is something I no longer want to do anymore, then you hand it off to someone. What ends up happening is a lot of micromanaging. It's like, oh, well, like you overtrain them because they're already skilled, right? If you're hiring like maybe a tech person to build your funnels and you've already built some for yourself before, you're not relying, right? It's a shift of power in the opposite direction. You're not giving them enough jurisdiction, you're not giving them enough power to right really empower them to do what you hire them to do. So that's where the micromanaging come in. So the other one was like not managing at all, like just letting them run the show, and that's where cost overrun happens. Then on this end, the micromanaging happens and you're like, oh my gosh, you're just really over managing this person. And then what happens is they become stuck, they become like when they were once empowered, like, well, you hired me to do this one thing, and now they're stuck. Like, well, every little thing that I do needs to be approved by you. So I'm not going to make my own choices. I'm always going to relegate to you, like, say, oh, hey, here's the thing. Can you check it? Here's the thing. Can you check it? And then what does that do? It ties up your time, it ties up your energy. And you're over here like, I hired you to do a role, but when you started off the relationship with micromanaging, you've created this codependency that they don't feel empowered to take action on their own. So essentially, what you've done is that you actually doubled your cost because you still have your hands in that. That's time, money, and energy that you're spending going there. And then you're also paying for their time. So like you just doubled your cost in that regard. So that's how that cost overrun happens. And how you can mitigate, right? There's the power shift that it's too much power, not enough power, micromanaging. And how you mitigate that essentially is communication, right? Having open dialogue with your people, opening trust, opening, you know, those lines of communication. And when I'm doing a team assessment, what I always end up doing is something similar to a disc assessment where I have my own personality quiz, which is unlock your power code. And I find people's power codes and we look at how this power code interacts with this power code because we all receive information differently. We all communicate in a different style. We all want to have a certain way that we communicate with this other person and how we would like to be communicated to. So essentially, what ends up happening is like we're both talking different languages. And it's like, oh, like, can we get on the same page? And so that's one of the things that is really leading to cost overrun is a lack of being able to communicate with the people on your team. And so one of the I want to say it's the easiest ways, but it's really the most cost effective. And when I say easy, right, we're talking about personalities, we're talking about behaviors, we're talking about communication, we're talking about the inner work that has to happen. But why I say it's the easiest, because it gives you the biggest bang for your buck. When you get to know people, what ends up happening is you open those lines of communication, you open those lines of trust. And then honestly, it just becomes this thing where once you start opening those lines of communication and you open those lines of trust, it just gets easier. It becomes this free flowing thing where you're always going to have like this energy that flows between you and your team members. Once that rapport is opened up, it's like, okay, hey, remember, got it, got it, got it, got it. And just the energy in the team dynamic shifts, and it becomes this beautiful synergy where I understand you, you understand me, and there's no fear of offending someone. So you're like the apprehension, because there's even a cost to apprehension. Is so let's quantify it this way. How many times have you sat down to write an email that you're like, I don't think the person is going to like receiving this. So, right, you type, backspace, backspace. Okay, that doesn't sound good. Like, how can I soften this? How can I make it better? You do that enough times, probably took you an hour to write an email to have this critical conversation with someone that you don't have a rapport with. And how it happens over time is, right, in the beginning, it's the honeymoon phase. You're like, yeah, yeah, yeah. And it's all great and fine and dandy. But then once you start getting to know each other and you're like, ugh, I really don't like that about her. Oh, I can't stand it when she does that. And you start, it's just like a marriage relationship or like a significant other relationship, you know, communication starts shutting down and it starts to get very sandpapery. Like all of those costs can be quantified in the power loss index. So you can, like, I've created this spreadsheet calculator that actually quantifies the cost of miscommunication, that quantifies the cost of, you know, hesitant communication. And it's very beautiful. I don't want to give too much away, but there's all these different categories in the calculator that talk about delayed decisions, that talk about miscommunication, that talk about, how to really quantify the time, ideas, money, and energy loss that happens. And in this category, right, communication, it's in the energy quadrant because this is the energy inside of your team. We can quantify where burnout's going to happen, where attrition is about to happen. We can quantify those leaks before they become big, roaring fires. And so, one of the things that I really love to do is to have people fill out the assessment. It has a whole bunch of questions that ask you stuff like, well, how many hours do you spend on checking and overchecking what your team members are doing? Like, how many hours, like just like the example that I gave you earlier, how many hours I spent on emails or on team meetings that probably could have been an email, stuff like that. And it's things that we complain about, right? Think about the things that you complain about either at work, if you're at corporate, or if you're on like a team, you and your own team. Like, think of all the things that you complain about or you grumble about or things that make you totally frustrated. These are the questions that I ask my clients when they're filling out the assessment. I ask them, how many hours are you spending on this frustration, on that frustration? And it really boils down to like, wow, I did not realize that these energy leaks or these communication gaps are really time sucks. And once you figure out the time that you're spending and you put a dollar amount to that, like, what's your wage? What's your salary? What are you paying yourself? What are you paying your team? It's okay. I spent this hours doing this thing that probably is a waste of time, and you quantify that over a year, Because if these are bad habits that you've picked up over time, or if you have team loss, attrition, things like that, you need to quantify the cost of having to train and onboard a new person into your business. It's like, oh my gosh, anyway, you can quantify so many things. And I'm so excited that, I was able to create the power loss index spreadsheet calculator that actually quantifies the cost of what used to be intangible and they are now tangible. So, if that's something that you need in your business, if you heard me talk about these communication gaps and fires and micromanaging and the power shift that happens, and this is something that you want in your business, comment below, like, or go to kaliota.com/consult, book a time, get on my calendar, and we can do this assessment for you and your team. And I would love to help you on this. So anyway, I hope you guys have a fabulous week, and I'll see you guys again next time. Just don't let the power leaks get to you, okay? Go get the power loss index, get the assessment done, and we can shore up these leaks. Okay, until next time, let's see you. Bye.